Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. All right, let's dive into a story that proves retail is anything but boring. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Retail to MMA. In college, I worked at an electronics retailer. One crazy evening, a guy showed up demanding a refund on an item. He had everything, even his receipt. By all rights, a refund was no issue whatsoever. But if that were all, I wouldn't be here. He demanded cash, but he originally paid with card. I explained the policy required that the return be done according to the method originally used to pay, and specifically the card that he used. He angrily demanded that card account was closed. I explained that my boss could override that, but she would not be in until the next day. This back and forth continued for several minutes as the guy got angrier and angrier. Now, it's important to note this guy's roughly 6'4" and easily north of 300 pounds. At this point, he produces the card he used, showing that he lied. Whatever, we did the return and he left. This is where it gets crazy. It was 15 minutes past closing by this point, and we're anxious to leave. It's just myself and a coworker when we hear this guy screaming obscenities at the sky. My coworker makes what I would consider a mistake. He goes out in front of the store to see what's going on. Almost immediately, these two enter the chicken walk that macho people do squaring up to fight. It's important to note here, although I did not know it at the time, that my coworker was also an MMA fighter. The guy did that dumb bum tackle where he hunches over and charges my coworker, who immediately puts the guy into a guillotine headlock. My coworker handles the guy like a cattleman might handle an ornery calf. There were no blows by my coworker, dominated while this guy's wife came screaming out of his truck. I realized at some point in this that I was of no help. I wrote the license plate of the guy on my palm with a Sharpie and called the cops. This is where it got scary. My coworker released the guy, figuring that he was done. The guy lumbered back to his truck like a brain-dead pachyderm. We thought he was trying to leave, but he immediately returned and stabbed my coworker with something he picked up from his truck. Whatever it was, it apparently was not a knife. After that, the guy and his wife take off. The cops arrive a few minutes later. They plugged his license plate number into their onboard computer, and the guy's mugshot pops up on their screen. From what I can see, he was previously wanted for drug-related offenses. I can only figure that he was high and thought that the object he grabbed was a knife. He certainly swung it like one because there was no actual injury. No charges were pressed. However, my coworker was arrested a few years later for running a human trafficking ring. Did you see that coming? He'll never leave prison. Retail is crazy. That's just lazy cops right there. It don't matter if there were injuries or not. It's still assault and battery with a deadly weapon. That's the kind of plot twist that would make M. Night Shyamalan proud. Honestly, if someone told me this is a movie script, I'd believe it. Retail really is crazy. And our second story. My neighbor secretly cut down my tree. Now he's paying 5 figures for it. When I first moved into my new home, I was eager to get along with my neighbors. The area was peaceful, and I was looking forward to settling into a place where my son and I could finally feel at home. But apparently my neighbor across the street had other plans. It all started after a bad storm when a tree from another neighbor's yard fell and crushed part of his fence and an outbuilding. After that, he suddenly became fixated on one of my oak trees. He came over one day, pointing out a small cavity near the base and voicing his concern that it could fall and cause damage. I genuinely appreciated him reaching out, so I took his worries seriously. I paid for a professional arborist to inspect the tree, and to my relief, they assured me that the tree was completely healthy. It was strong, thriving, and had no structural issues. I relayed all of this to my neighbor, even telling him he was welcome to bring in his own arborist if he wanted a second opinion. That should have been the end of it. Instead, he said he was concerned about the branches that hung over the road, not over his house, just over the street. I told him I was open to discussing some light trimming, and if the costs were reasonable, I might even chip in to help. We left the conversation on what I thought was a respectful note. I made it clear I was open to discussions, not that he had free rein to do whatever he wanted. That was months ago. We continued to exchange friendly hellos whenever we passed each other, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary until today. I came home and instantly felt like something was wrong. My heart dropped into my stomach as I realized my tree was gone. Not just trimmed, gone. Cut down to the stump. It took me a second to process it, but then I noticed 3 more mature oaks had been aggressively trimmed down. The branches that once gave the street a beautiful shady canopy were butchered, and no one had told me a damn thing. I stood there stunned. I'd never given permission for this, never been informed that it was happening, and never once agreed to losing my tree entirely. I'd been completely blindsided. And the worst part, he knew. He knew I was a single mom stretching every dollar. He knew I had already paid for an arborist. He knew I valued those trees, and yet he took my silence as permission to bulldoze over my rights and do whatever he pleased. I have no doubt that if I had a husband or even a male partner living here, this never would have happened. He wouldn't have dared to pull something like this. So now I'm done playing nice. I have another arborist coming out this week to assess the damage and document exactly what was done to the remaining trees. After that, I'm hiring a lawyer and taking him to court. I asked my parents for financial help. At this point, it's not even just about the tree, it's about respect. He saw an opportunity to walk all over me and took it. Now I'm going to make sure he pays for it. I miss my old oaks. I miss the beauty they brought to my property, and I wish to God this never happened. But I'm not going to just sit here and let this slide. If he thought I was too weak to fight back, he's about to learn just how wrong he was. Update. I won. After getting an arborist report confirming that my tree was healthy before it was illegally cut down, my lawyer wasted no time filing a civil suit against him. He had the audacity to try and argue that I had verbally agreed to remove the tree, despite the fact that I had texts and notes from our conversation proving I only agreed to discuss light trimming. The judge saw right through his bullcrap. In court, my lawyer presented everything: the arborist report, photos of the destroyed tree, text messages, and even a video from my security camera showing the tree removal crew working on my property without my permission. The judge ruled in my favor, stating that he had trespassed and damaged my property. The compensation was huge, a hefty 5-figure sum, enough to not only cover the arborist fees and legal costs, but also enough for me to plant brand new mature trees and install a privacy fence. This is one of those stories that fills you with rage and pure satisfaction all at once. The audacity of this man to go onto your property, cut down a healthy tree, and think he could get away with it is just beyond infuriating. And you're 100% right. If you had a husband or a male partner, he never would have pulled this stunt. And our last story. It's a 2-person jacuzzi. Karen's spying son doesn't belong here. I have a small cabin with a sauna and a hot tub in my own backyard. Why did I build it there? First of all, I adore heat treatments. I love to relax in the sauna and then sit in the hot tub listening to music or simply enjoying the silence. Secondly, it was a little dream of mine to have a cozy guest room with a separate shower and toilet so that relatives or friends could stay overnight without disrupting the routine in the main house. My girlfriend is also thrilled with the idea. We often use this cabin as a spa zone for two to enjoy some privacy and spend time without any fuss. For a long time, our neighborhood was idyllic. Neighbors were mostly friendly. We would greet one another, help out when needed. That was until the infamous Karen moved in next door. She appeared a few months ago and immediately drew attention, dissatisfied with everyone and everything. She always acted superior, thinking her opinion was the only correct one, while everyone else was practically her subordinates. Constant complaints, hysterical shouting in the yard, loud phone conversations so that the entire neighborhood could hear. Plus, it seems like she never takes a cigarette out of her mouth. But the worst part was that Karen has a teenage son who tried to outdo his mother in every way. If Karen started with loud swearing, her son had no respect whatsoever for anyone's privacy or semblance of common decency. They lived next to us for over 2 years. And then this story happened. I'll start with the fact that about 2 weeks ago, I suddenly couldn't find the keys to that same cabin with the sauna. I searched a bit, but didn't manage to locate them. I considered all sorts of possibilities. Maybe I lost them in a store, or they fell out somewhere during a walk. But in the end, I decided not to worry too much. I thought, well, lost means lost. I have a spare set of keys, so I'll just use them. Maybe I'll find the missing ones when I do a thorough cleaning at home. A few weeks passed. One evening, I decided to invite my girlfriend to relax in the hot tub. We usually lock the door from the inside when we're there. This time was no different. We stood around chatting about small things, sipping a cold drink after the sauna. Sheer bliss. Then suddenly a cold draft blew in. I turned and noticed a pair of eyes peering through a crack in the door. A startled look, gone in an instant just as I moved closer. Naturally, I dashed outside wearing whatever I had on at the moment. No one was around, but the evidence was obvious. A moved flower pot and a discarded cigarette butt. I don't smoke at all, so it definitely wasn't mine, and I thought, who could be snooping around my property and even spying on us? A minute later, I noticed something shiny in the lock of the cabin's exterior door, and there it was, my long-lost keys with my favorite keychain, that someone didn't manage to take them out when I appeared in time. I was standing there thinking when suddenly there was a wild uproar nearby. Karen stormed into the yard, her face contorted with rage. She screamed that I had allegedly attacked her poor child and that she had called the police, so now I was done for. Later, I saw him limping on one leg behind the fence. I tried to talk to Karen and realized that her son had illegally entered my property and even spied on me and my girlfriend. Of course, she refused to listen. My girlfriend, hearing all the commotion, ran outside, barely dressed, and immediately started arguing with Karen because Karen, without a shred of shame, began hurling insults at my partner as well. I literally had to pull them apart so it wouldn't turn into a fight. To sum it up, Karen shrieked that it's our fault and that we'd all end up in jail. I tried not to react, understanding that the police were on their way and I just needed to wait and explain everything as it actually happened. The officers arrived. Karen clutched her chest theatrically. "Look at him, he attacked my son, my poor boy," and angrily pointed at me. I just gave a crooked smile. "Officers, could we calmly discuss this at my place? I have security cameras in the yard that record everything." The moment I said that, Karen practically froze. She fell silent, and I could see from her face she realized, "You're serious? You have video evidence?" I noticed her son shrink behind her, probably understanding the game was over. While I led the officers inside, I quickly threw on a robe and signaled my girlfriend to do the same. Karen kept trying to persuade them that we'd resolve everything ourselves and that she'd changed her mind about calling them. But no one was paying attention to her anymore. Her son, meanwhile, remained silent as a fish, having grasped that all his adventures had been caught on film. We turned on the footage from my cameras and everything was crystal clear. Karen's son was creeping around the cabin, taking my keys out of his own pocket. I recognized my keychain, unlocking the door, trying to peek inside while either whistling or laughing. At one point, I appeared and he bolted, jumping over the fence, where he fell, which explained his limp. The officers replayed the video several times. Their smiles said it all. The performance Karen tried to stage was over. Karen stood there, pale with rage, screaming, "This is unfair. He's just a teenager. He's curious. He wasn't stealing anything," and so on. I understood she would defend him to the end, even though she knew he was guilty. But the police were clear that her son had trespassed on someone else's private property and then falsely accused me of assault, which didn't happen. In the end, I explained to the officers that what bothered me most wasn't just the trespassing, but the outright inappropriate behavior, spying on me and my girlfriend. That's definitely beyond any reasonable boundary. When I said I was ready to press charges, Karen fell silent. She realized it could have serious consequences, especially because the video unequivocally showed her son invading my private space. The footage also showed how Karen's son threw away a cigarette butt while he was escaping. The police immediately took interest in that butt. It turned out that it wasn't normal tobacco, but something far more serious and illegal. Realizing how bad things had become, Karen finally fell silent for good. I only agreed not to press official charges on the condition that she and her son stay away from me and my girlfriend. Since then, my backyard's been peaceful, and Karen and her inquisitive boy ended up in jail literally a week later when he stole a convertible from a retired attorney to give his girlfriend a joyride. I guess with that kind of upbringing, he actually stayed out of prison longer than expected. The neighborhood's premier key hunter has moved to a new level of difficulty. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.